So the job that I just got is at the company that I was already working for. I was working as a billing specialist and I was there for about 9 or 10 months. Um, and it kind of was perfect because it was within the same company. I already knew like the structure, I had made some contacts. So it kind of worked out perfectly.
The market for ID jobs is competitive, which can make the job search difficult. That's why it's important to take advantage of opportunities when they come. What if you found the perfect instructional design job for you, but you weren't sure if you had the necessary skills and qualifications and experience necessary to get hired? Would you go for it anyway? I'm Scott Schmidt, one of the bootcamp pros on the Devlin Peck team. In today's video, I'm going to share with you the story of how bootcamper Alyssa DeTillio found a fantastic ID opportunity right at the same company where she was already working. She decided to go for it and landed that role. She'll tell you how she managed to make that happen and how it has changed her life. Let's hear her story now.
So the job that I just got, I was at the company that I was already working for. I was working as a billing specialist and I was there for about 9 or 10 months. And it kind of was perfect because it was within the same company. I already knew like the structure, I had made some contacts. So it kind of worked out perfectly. But at the time I was doing billing. I had taken that opportunity because that was my first job out of the classroom. And I really just took that to get some corporate experience. And throughout the 9 or 10 months that I was there, I just kept checking the job boards to see if there were any opportunities. And then this one obviously stuck. So I wanted to switch to instructional design. I've been wanting to switch to it for a while, for the last 3 years. In the current role that I was in, I was getting bored. It was not really what I wanted to do with my life. I just knew I had taken that opportunity as a billing specialist just because I wanted to get my foot in the door. But I felt like I really wasn't using my skills or my brain to the capacity that I felt like I could. And so really this has been like a 3-year journey for me. But I wanted to switch because at that time, after taking like part of the boot camp classes, I felt ready. I felt like, I understood the software and I understood the process. And I was just kind of ready to start my career and see where it went from there. I noticed the job posting on an internal job board. And I had applied for that job and it was really perfect because they were looking for someone with teaching experience and all of the skills lined up to, all the skills that I had and all the things that I was doing when I was in the classroom. I went back into like the company policies and checked and made sure that I was eligible and I sent it to my supervisor. And I was like, hey, just an FYI, I'm going to go for this. I see that I'm eligible now. I would really appreciate, you giving me a good word, but I'm going to apply for this. And so I applied and then it kind of took off. I had 3 interviews. And then luckily everything kind of panned out. And then I finally got the offer and then I started a few weeks after. As I mentioned earlier, I have been wanting to be an instructional designer for the last couple of years. My background's in education. I was a teacher for about 10 years. I took like a couple years off when my twins were born. And so when I had kind of learned and stumbled upon instructional design, I was like, wow, this is like right up my alley. I feel like this is something that would be really good for me long term. So that was the biggest reason for wanting to switch to instructional designs. I will say my time as a billing specialist, I am so grateful. Even I knew that it was never going to be something that was like a long-term thing. I knew that it was just a short-term, like point to get me to where I wanted to be. 95% of why I took that job was because I knew it was a foot in the door. I knew that I had all this teaching on my resume. I knew that was going to be fine, but I knew I wanted to do something in like corporate environment. And so I would need some kind of corporate experience. Um, and I learned so much. And the beauty of being able to, I was lucky enough that I found a job within the organization, but having those like first 9 or 10 months on that first team really did teach me a lot about like our company and what we stand for. I also kind of like was the like trainer in some respects. We would get new people all the time that would come onto the team. And so my supervisor, I think, saw like, wow, you're really organized. Oh, you're good at explaining things. Oh, you take really good notes. Hey, we're going to have this person shadow you. Hey, can you show them how to do this? And so like by the end of my time as a billing specialist, I had created a bunch of training materials, processes. Actually, one of the reasons I think why I got the job was because I had created in one weekend, I was like, okay, I'm going to do something. I'm going to create a training that like my team could use so that I can have something to show them like, hey, this is what I'm doing for our company. And they loved that. And my supervisor at the time loved it. He was like, wow, oh my gosh, we're going to use this. So it was nice because I felt like all of the experiences together really kind of helped me get to where I am.
Well, that's a big part of the story is you took the initiative to develop some of those things, and it really helped lead you to having something you could use to prove, look, I can do this. I know what I'm doing. So no, it was fantastic. Very, very good. Thank you. What thoughts and feelings did you have? Because a big part of this video is the fact that you just went for it because you didn't have a lot of experience. You hadn't completed a program, but you went for it anyway. So what feelings and thoughts did you have that made you ultimately decide, I'm going to do this?
Yeah.
I'm going to really go for it. What made you feel like you did have enough of the skills?
As I mentioned earlier, I had applied for this instructional designer position. There were 2 that I had applied for. It took out on a Word document. I copied and pasted all of the basically skills and requirements they were looking for in somebody. And I pasted it in a Word document. And then I did like 2 columns. So that was on one side. And on the other side, I basically, like I was trying to go through like the STAR approach. So I was like thinking about times and experiences where I had applied those skills. And once I had done that, I was like, wow, okay, I actually can do this. Like I have so many experiences of this instance, and I can do this skill like with, my eyes closed. Like, so I think going through that process and having the support of my partner, like kind of cheering me on, was really what helped me decide, okay, you know what, it's time. There was a part of me, I was like, okay, maybe I'll just wait till 2025 because I haven't gone all the way through the boot camp. And I was like, I don't know, maybe I need to wait. But then there was a part of me that was like, no, what if another opportunity like this doesn't come up? Like, this is the second time that a job has opened up in your company. There may not be a third time. So I was like, okay, it's now or never. And if I don't get it, I'm just going to continue working on the team that I'm on and I'll keep looking for other jobs when I'm ready. But really, it was just kind of going through that process. And like, I always had to like talk myself into it. But when I was able to kind of draw the line and say like, look, I actually have done all of these things outside of being an instructional designer. Like these are things that I'd done in my teaching experiences. And even some of it when I was billing, like changing up processes and, creating I did like a software simulation training for the first team that I was on. And I knew that like any corporation, like any team is going to want somebody that's going to take a problem and like create a solution, right? So just thinking of those things, seeing it on paper and then like looking at it multiple times, that was what made me feel like, okay, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to go for it. And that's it. I definitely was a little nervous once I applied. I felt like, my gosh, what if they think that my teaching experience isn't good enough? Like, I don't have this like corporate instructional design experience. And then I was like, you know what, whatever. At least I tried. And now I'm just going to put good vibes out there and hope for the best. And I'll say this, my team right now, the two of the leaders that I work with, they both were public school teachers and they both have an education background, which once I realized that actually made me feel so much better. I was like, oh, okay. That's why, like, they actually value, what I bring to the table and my experiences. Yes, it was as a classroom teacher, but they know that I have the skills necessary to do this job. And I've proven to myself that, hey, I can do this. So it definitely was an emotional roller coaster. But in the end, I'm so glad that I did, because if I had waited, I may not have had another chance to stay within the company that I'm at. And now the great part is, like, I'll be with the company. It'll be a year next month. So I'm already starting to get invested, and that's kind of what I wanted. So I'm glad that I just kind of went for it. But for me and the way that my brain works, I just needed to see it on paper to kind of like give myself a boost.
All right. Okay. So then really just one thing to kind of wrap up here. In addition to any other final thoughts that you would like to share about this whole experience for you, is, what advice would you give to people based on your story? I mean, obviously your story is yours, but
Right.
what are some of the overall lessons you think you may have learned from this whole process and everything like that?
All right. Yeah, I
Oh.
can talk about that.
Okay.
I would say, so, in hindsight, through this entire experience, I think the biggest thing that I learned is that sometimes you're not always going to feel ready. I am the kind of person, I like to have all my ducks in a row. And I almost didn't apply to this position because I was like, well, I didn't finish the boot camp yet and I don't feel ready and I don't know if I can do it. But I think sometimes you just have to just trust in it. You just have to, say, you know what, I can do this. And even if this doesn't work out, this is a learning experience. Any other advice I would give to somebody either looking to break into the industry or even just like looking, to get a new job in general. I mean, your resume is important. But like, look at those skills that the company is looking for. Look at their requirements. Think about times where you've had those things and you've implemented those things or you've used those skills, because when you're in an interview, they're going to want to see, that you've, been in those situations and how you would handle it. I would also say do your research and try to network. Before my second interview, my panel interview, I had connected with a few of the people I knew that were going to be on the panel in LinkedIn. And that was when I learned that they had teaching experience and they had taught in public schools. And I was like, it just made me feel so much better walking in, kind of knowing, a little bit about each person. Because I felt like I could relate to them a little bit better because we had had similar experiences. Basically, like, do anything that you can to make yourself feel comfortable and come across as confident. I mean, there were times in the interview where I was like, oh, I hope that was the right answer. But I just kind of maintained my composure and I spoke very confidently about my experiences, because really at the end of the day, they're just trying to get to know about who I am as a person to see if I'm a good fit. And if it's not a good fit, that's okay. There's another opportunity your way. And the only other advice I would say, like, in my situation, because I was able to find a job internally, that was great. I think the biggest reason I was able to was because I had made something that like my team could actually use and implement, right? Like, especially in corporate America, they want to see that you can fix things. When something goes wrong, they want to see that you can like fix a process. And there was a need for training and I developed one and that it was a huge hit. So I would say, yeah, just, do anything that you can to be confident. And then try to do your research ahead of time. The last thing I will say is just like, make sure you have the skills. Like I had a lot of the teaching skills. If it was not for the boot camp, I would not have had the skills like working in Articulate and like doing all of the like some of the technology side. I had worked in using a lot of different authoring tools in my teaching days. And but I had never really worked in Articulate, and I knew that was like a big thing. That's like industry standard. So, being able to make sure that you have some of those basic skills, that's super important. But I wouldn't have gotten there if it wasn't for the boot camp. So I'm super grateful for that. Um, but yeah, just be confident and just, sometimes you just have to go for it even when you don't feel ready and just trust in the process.
Thanks to Alyssa for sharing her story. She has shown that even if you don't meet all of the requirements in a job posting, as long as you can demonstrate your skills and understanding of ID concepts and theories, you too can still land a great role in instructional design, even with limited experience. Alyssa had not finished her upskilling work with the Devlin Peck team at the time she applied, but she used what she had already learned from the team and skills she developed in previous roles to secure this opportunity. You may recall Alyssa talking about how she was hesitant to apply because she wasn't sure if she had the skills and experience necessary to get hired for the job. This is often called imposter syndrome, and it's quite common. If you'd like to learn more about how to overcome imposter syndrome, check out the video linked in the description below. I hope you've been inspired by Alyssa's story and that it helps give you a boost of confidence to take any opportunities that come your way. We'll see you in the next video.